d6. d4, rat transposed. Knight f6, Indian defense, Tory attack transposed, opening line. Knight c3, out of opening book. c4, would have been in the Indian defense, old Indian defense, transposed, book opening. Knight bd7. e4, Peart's defense, transposed, opening line. e5, Philidor's defense, Nimzovich or Jainish variation, improved Hanham variation, transposed, opening line. g4, out of opening book. Bishop c4, would have been in the Philidor's defense, Nimzovich or Jainish variation, improved Hanham variation, book opening. Slightly better is bishop c4. g6. g5, moves it to safety and attacks black's knight at f6. Knight h5, moves it to safety. Bishop h3, enables the short castle. E takes d4, threatens white's knight at c3. Knight takes d4, removes the threat on white's knight at c3. h6. Bishop takes d7, check, checks black's king. Bishop takes d7, protects black's king. Black wins a bishop and a pawn, for a knight and a pawn. Material is even. h4. Bishop e7, clears the way for a kingside castle. G takes h6, creates a passed pawn on h6. Bishop takes h4, pins white's pawn at f2. Black wins a pawn, for a pawn. Material is even. Bishop e3. c6. Knight f5, double attacks black's pawn at d6. G takes f5. Queen takes h5, pins black's pawn at f7 and enables the long castle. White wins a knight, for a knight. Material is even. Bishop f6. Releases black's pawn at f7 from the pin. Castle queenside, threatens black's pawn at d6. Queen e7, protects black's pawn at d6 and clears the way for a queenside castle. Bishop f4, blocks black's pawn at f5. Castle queenside. Bishop takes d6, attacks black's queen. White wins a pawn. Queen e6, moves it to safety. e5, threatens black's bishop at f6. Bishop takes e5, isolates white's pawn at f2. Bishop takes e5, threatens black's rook at h8. Queen takes e5, protects black's rook at h8. Black wins a bishop and a pawn, for a bishop. Material is even. h7, advances the passed pawn. Rook d e8. Frees black's pawn at f5 from the pin. Queen takes f7. White wins a pawn. Rook e7. Attacks white's queen. Queen g8 check. Checks black's king and takes control of the open file. King c7. Moves it out of check. Rook d e1 leads to rook e takes h7, queen takes h7, rook takes h7, rook takes e5, rook takes h1, check, king d2, king d6, rook e2, c5, f4, rook f1, king e3, bishop c6, rook f2, rook takes f2, king takes f2, which wins a queen and 2 rooks. For a queen, 2 rooks, and a pawn. Better is f3, leading to bishop e6, queen g5, bishop d7, queen g6, rook g7, queen h6, rook h takes h7, queen takes h7, rook takes h7, rook takes h7, which wins 2 rooks. For a queen and a pawn. This was White's only significant mistake, but the game ended without a resolution. Rook e takes h7. Queen takes h7. Pins Black's bishop. Rook takes h7. Releases Black's bishop from the pin. Rook takes e5. Rook takes h1, check. Checks White's king. Black wins a queen, a rook, and a pawn. For a queen and a rook. Material is even. King d2. Moves it out of check. King d6. Attacks White's rook. Rook e3. Moves it to safety. Rook h2 pins White's pawn at f2 and attacks White's pawn at f2. King e1 frees White's pawn at f2 from the pin and removes the threat on White's pawn at f2. Rook h1 check. Checks White's king. King e2 moves it out of check. Rook h2 pins White's pawn at f2. King e1 frees White's pawn at f2 from the pin. Rook h1 check. Checks White's king. The game ends with no result.